How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to the Peegs Postgame Live. Indiana falls to the Maryland Terrapins in a tight one. The Hoosiers lose when they miss a last-second shot that could have won the game or tied the game, depending on where Miles Rice's feet were. 79-78 is your final score. The Hoosiers fall again. Uh, have now lost uh, what is it now? Four of their last five games, I believe, is the exact number, and another inconsistent outing for the Hoosiers. And there's certainly plenty to talk about when it comes to this ball game. 812-393-2600 is the number. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear what your thoughts are on this basketball game, on this NFL Championship Sunday. I understand that is part of the equation, so we just have to um, uh, just have a lot to talk about here. As they already picked those up. I'm going to get the name tags here in Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Uh, Again, 812-393-2600 is the number. The Hoosiers um, deserve credit for battling back after falling behind early, falling behind by as many as 10 points in the second half. Midway through the second half, it was 63-53. The Hoosiers led by as many as five uh, with 3:07 left, and just couldn't hold on. Couldn't hold on. And this was a game that the Hoosiers got plenty out of their starters. Four out of their five starters scored in double figures. Even Anthony Leal had 6 points, including a big 3-point play late in the game. But another game where the opponent, does big damage from three and Maryland knocked down 12 3-pointers on the day, went 8 of 14 from three in the second half. Some of them were contested, some of them weren't. But the real big takeaway on this one in a 1-point loss is it's great that Indiana battled back. It's great that the Hoosiers didn't roll over when they're down 10 midway through the second half. That is all great. The takeaway from this one, though, is the final play, where you have Indiana. Miles Rice attempts a last second shot, but the play that was called was very obviously not executed correctly. And that is something that head coach Mike Woodson absolutely, tossed Miles under the bus in the post game. And there's accountability, and then there's a couple of times just talking about how your players didn't do what I wanted them to do. It would have been, that wasn't what we were looking for. There were confusing substitutions on that possession, including Omar Ballo coming out of the game, which was odd, considering the Hoosiers didn't need a three, they needed a two. And so even if you lob something to Ballo, if you need to, he's a big that is there. And he was taken out of the game, and Anthony Leal was taken out of the game. Luke Goody was put in the game. The fans were going nuts over each individual substitution as they came out because it didn't make a lot of sense for some of the moves that were being made. And then the play itself, everything went to the short corner right in front of the Indiana bench. Spacing was god awful on the play. Malik Renew stood there looking like he was trying to set a screen to get Miles Rice to curl back around, but Rice never moved. I tell my second and third grade team that if you are standing next to somebody, that's a problem because now you're letting two defenders guard one area, and it makes it real easy. It makes you easy to guard. Indiana made itself real easy to guard in the for the final shot, and they had to throw up a desperation heave, and Indiana loses the ball game. 812-393-2600 is the number. Uh, Chris on the chat says 11 games to go till Woodson is gone, hopefully sooner. Um, that is something that there's I things would have to fall apart very, very quickly, I think, for that to get there. But this is the kind of thing that is it hurts. Now you could say, hey, look, the Big Ten's tough, and you gotta be able to win where you can, be able to squeak out wins. Indiana went on the road a couple weeks ago, and or hell, it's starting to become a blur. A week ago, I guess it was, and won by one in overtime against Ohio State. This one, Indiana clearly has better talent than Maryland. Maryland's a talented team; they're a good team, but you're in Assembly Hall, and I give a ton of credit for these Hoosier fans. This place was loud today. They were rocking today, and there's nothing that anybody could say about the fan support that came today. It was a loud atmosphere. It got real loud at the under 16 timeout in the first half when Kurt Signetti and the football team came out, which is a odd switch from what it used to be. But it was nice. It was very nice to see. And now, uh, I just this loss, and especially drawn up on a play that had no play. If guys, there was also a comment made by Miles Rice about the late substitutions on before the final play that created some confusion. He took the blame on himself because he's the point guard. He's supposed to get everybody on the same page. But also, it's very clear that Mike Woodson didn't have everybody on the same page, and the late substitutions confused everybody. It confused everybody. Fans were pissed off about it. The play never actually came together. Josh on the chat says coaching malpractice, and this is a situation where Indiana should have been able to get off a decent shot or at least have something going towards the basket. Instead, the entire time that ball was inbounds for the last possession, there was nobody in the paint. Not a single Hoosier was in the paint. You're down by one. You do not need a three. You need something going towards the bucket, and it didn't happen. Indiana missed the shot, and they lost. And they lost because it was way too many easy baskets for Maryland. Indiana gives up 79 points in this one. Maryland shoots 49% from the field overall, 50% from three-point range. And Maryland wins the ball game despite shooting just 9 free throws on the day. They also out-rebounded the Hoosiers 35-32. And Indiana loses despite shooting 48.4% overall, 51.5% in the second half alone, um, going 7 of 17 from three-point range, which is not bad. And then you just throw in the issue of uh, Indiana lost despite turning the ball over just 7 times. Hoosiers didn't play bad offensively today. They weren't good defensively. They were inconsistent as hell, which we're used to. So that's kind of where we are. 812-393-2600 is the number. Lines are open. I want to hear from you. There's various people are putting in the chat that Woodson Woodson told people to F off when he was walking off the court. I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing about it. I went down to the press room, so I didn't see that. I've also, Kyle, on the chat says, you see the video of Goody having to tell Jan Woody to go back to the handshake line. Haven't seen that yet either because I was working to try to get on the air as quickly as I have. So I haven't seen that, but I will be sure to check that out. Uh, but this is it's a bad loss. It's not one of these blowout losses like we saw against Illinois, but still, it just continues a run of what we've been dealing with this basketball program. People uh, are pissed off, and they should be. They should be. Indiana let this game get away, and there's just really, really, really too much, and really, really too much frustration. I'll say it, say it that way. 812-393-2600 is the number. I'm going to go ahead and uh, bring up Mike Woodson and his post-game press conference. Again, interesting to say the least with Mike Woodson because he definitely did truck one of his players under the bus. And Miles Rice is that guy. You're gonna hear from him. Um, but the Hoosiers, they got some work to do, especially with what's coming up here in the next week or so. So, without any further ado, here's Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference.
Like, just as much as you can, what were you looking for on that last pair of inbounds and just kind of what broke down? I know the first one, Malik gets the ball poked away, but.
Well, they went to zone, and then when we went underneath out of bounds, we had a play for Miles to come off because we knew that they would switch to big, and he didn't. He never came off. So, but that, being said, we had our opportunities. We had a foul to give, which we talked about in the timeout and didn't give it. And so that was huge. I mean, you got to make plays down the stretch, and I got to get them to understand that. And, we missed a big front end of a 1-and-1 that could have put us back up 3 or 4. I mean, it's just the little things that we didn't execute coming down the home stretch.
Coach, giving up 78 at home, just your level of concern or your thoughts on, just giving up that many points in a home game?
Well, I mean, it was that type of game. I mean, they're a good offensive team, and, I thought we did everything we were supposed to do to get back in the game, and we just didn't finish. With the foul to give and not give it's unacceptable, but, hey, you can't go back and get it now.
Tom and Daniel.
Like, just big picture with this. I mean, you obviously have to swallow this tough loss. What is a game that ends like that? Is that harder to swallow than others?
No, anytime you lose, it's tough to swallow. I don't like to lose at all. I mean, it's just my makeup. And I know those guys in the locker room, hey, I love them to death, and they don't like losing. But again, I gotta help them more. That's what I gotta do.
Yeah, Mike, when you start naming just the long list of things that went wrong late, I think you had 3 seniors out there. I'm sure you guys practiced that a lot. How surprised are you the execution kind of stumbled it that way?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say we executed to get back into the game. We on the free throw line with the 1-and-1 up 2 with, I think, 20-some seconds on the clock. And then we just didn't get a key stop with the foul to give. The ball scrambled out, and the initial thrust of their offense, I thought we played it well. And then when the ball kind of spurted around, we just didn't get up and take the foul like we should have.
Yeah, you've mentioned kind of multiple times, even in the last couple of weeks, about trying to get this team to play more consistently. Is there anything that you've done to try to change up, to try to reach them, or try to change your approach when things have struggled?
Today, getting Malik back was a plus. He missed 6 games, guys, and I'm not using that as an excuse. We went 4-2 in that stretch with 3 games on the road, going 2-1, and he's lost a lot of his conditioning. And, make no mistake about it, when you're playing teams like Maryland and Purdue, teams that got bigs, you got to play big. And, I thought with Goody coming in off the bench tonight, he played his butt off and made plays. But, a Derek Queen matching up with Goody is not a good match. And I thought Malik came on at the end and showed some fight, considering he hadn't played a whole lot here as of late. So we got to get him back in better condition. He played 20-some minutes tonight, and see if he can help us finish this 10-game run.
Mike, on the last inbounds, you swapped out McKenzie and Goody for Leal and Ballo. Was there something you saw in what Maryland's set was to do that?
Well,
or also was there, off the timeout, something you didn't see that caused you to not put them in at that point?
Well, they went zone on our initial last timeout, and Malik tried to make the play on the baseline, anything to get a foul, and Derek made a good play on the ball to knock it out of bounds. But the play that we had coming underneath, we just didn't execute. Miles didn't come off, and he stayed there in the corner, and we didn't get much out of it.
Coach, now the second straight game that your opponent has gone hot from three-point range in the second half. What do you think that is a byproduct of?
Again, I mean, if guys are shooting, a couple times we lost guys, but there were a few times that we were right there. And obviously you're not close enough if guys can just turn and shoot in your face and make them. And we just got to get better in that area and guarding the three ball. Early on we were pretty good in that area, and we had some slippage there as well.
Last question, Mike.
Coach, you guys were up 5 with 3 minutes to go, and it seemed like the next few possessions got really late into the shot clock and didn't end up in good looks. Did you get what you wanted out of those? Were you trying to work clock or what?
No, I wasn't really trying to work clock. I thought Malik, rushed a little push shot that he had right there in the lane, kind of a little chippy few that he had just made. I thought, I thought we executed okay and got some good shots, but you still got to defend on the other end. I thought we gave up an easy layup to Reese, and I know Malik didn't want to foul out, and I get that. But, we can't give up layups. I mean, especially in short clock situation. I mean, they got that early in the clock, so they didn't have to milk any of the time off the clock. So, I mean, it's a tough game. We just got to bounce back.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Oh, that's a long 6 minutes. 812-393-2600 is your number. Lines are wide open. I want to hear from you because, again, I was really amazed by a couple of things that were involved there. Again, him repeatedly talking about Miles Rice not being the not coming off and not basically executing the play the way that he wanted to. Also talked about how we had a foul to give and we didn't execute it. Anthony Leal was asked about it in the post game, and he said that it was mentioned during the timeout. It was mentioned, which I think is an interesting thing because it was mentioned. Great. You got to tell somebody if the ball gets near you, foul. We got a foul to give. Make them work at it. We have a foul to give. And that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Nobody created the foul that was needed. And that was that for them. You also throw in the comments about being confused and the substitutions and all that. That's the bottom line on this thing, folks, is all the substitutions right before the play confused everybody, and Indiana couldn't call a timeout to get there because they didn't have any left. Because Indiana also had to use a timeout 86 seconds into the second half because Maryland opened the second half really quickly by scoring, the first 4 points of the second half, and Indiana called a timeout, and the lead was 5 at that point for Maryland. It was a very quick timeout, and I don't know that timeout was needed right then. It would have been nice to have it at the end, but that's always, you don't want to end a game with a timeout in your pocket, I guess, unless you're Matt Eberflus, in which case then that is what it is. But and again, it was the end of this game just was really a microcosm of so much of what has happened with Indiana basketball over the last several years, and especially the last several weeks, where just a lot of confusion, a lot of inconsistency, a lot of opportunities lost, poor communication, all of it. I also went ahead and during the time that he was talking, I looked up the video that you were talking about on the chat, Kyle, with Luke Goody, and I don't. There's a small thing. I need more context for that than to really say. What may have happened there. Again, I didn't see it live. I went to the press room. I would need to see more of that. But at least from that snippet, it's not a good look. But look, anything looks bad in a snippet, right there, which is also, I believe, single game record for most times I've said snippet in a Peegs post game live. We're possibly a Peegs podcast, and I've been doing that for 10 years. Ty on the chat says we haven't won at Wisconsin this century, so that's an automatic L. Maybe we could sneak a W at Mackey. That's something that I keep coming back to as well. History, I'm a big history guy. History is for the fans and the media. Every team is different with that, but it's always been a tough place for Indiana to win. So that's going to be a challenge. Purdue is a very good basketball team, and it's not even, as an IU alum, it's not even hard to say that they have been the better program for the past several years. So that is, part of the difficulty here. Um, oh, we keep watching the same game, don't we, folks? Over and over and over again. 812-393-2600 is the number. I'm obviously not the only voice that I want to hear. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, and I want to hear from you folks that are understandably fed up with this. And there's not a lot of places to go from here. You can try to get better. The weird rant about, or I don't want to say rant, that's the wrong word. The weird comments about Malik Renew. We have to get him more. We've been out for 6 games, and trying to talk about what they did during those 6 games is an odd answer for me because of the fact that nobody really is all that impressed with what had to be said especially when you're throwing together back-to-back 25-point losses. You've lost games to Iowa, Illinois, Iowa, Illinois, Northwestern, and Maryland. You've lost 4 of your last 5, and you want to go ahead and talk about Malik Renew. We talked about it at the time that Malik Renew isn't worth 25 points against Illinois or Iowa. Was he going to make a difference? With that, Renew was in the game, obviously, for that last shot, and the spacing was terrible. And even if Miles Rice didn't have to go, you also have to have an inbounder that understands. Look, we're not looking for a 3. We're looking for something going towards the basket, but nobody went towards the basket at all. Nobody was available. Woodson talking about Renew's conditioning and getting him in there is just interesting to me because of the fact that Renew played 24 minutes in this thing and was out there when they needed him. Played 18 minutes in the second half. It wasn't Malik Renew that was the problem here. It wasn't. It was the lack of execution on the final play and the play call itself, in which you took your big out of you took Ballo out of the lineup. You put Ballo inside. You could lob one to him and let him go up and maybe get fouled, maybe get something going towards the rim because it's a 1-point game. You don't need a 3, and you sure as hell don't need a turnaround fadeaway 3. You got to get something going towards the bucket, and that's not what happened. Some of the individual stats on this, let's start with um, Mackenzie Mbako had a nice game offensively, 16 points on 7 of 12 shooting, 2 of 5 from three-point range. He added 5 rebounds in 28 minutes. He was just -2 on the day, but he did get beat a number of times defensively. It's not his strong suit, but at least he contributed offensively. Miles Rice, 16 points on 5 of 11 shooting, 3 of 5 from three-point range, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, had 1 rebound and 3 assists versus just 1 turnover in 35 minutes. That said, Indiana had only 15 assists on 31 made baskets. Um, so your point guard, who I believe he had 0 assists last game, he's not exactly distributing the ball. Don't have a lot of that, and I think that is an interesting part of this. Umar Balo, 14 points on 6 of 12 shooting. He had 10 rebounds, another double double for Umar. 3 assists, same number as your point guard. But he did have 2 turnovers, a block, a couple of steals. Malik Renew, 10 points back in the starting lineup, 5 of 14, had 6 rebounds, played 24 minutes in the game, including 18 of them in the second half. Off the bench, he had 8 points from Luke Goody, who has been shooting out of his mind from three and doing what he has been asked to do when he was brought here to do. He's been doing it over the last several games with that. But I thought it was an odd position to bring him in for that final possession because of the fact that you needed something going towards the bucket. You didn't need a three. You needed a basket in any way that you could get it. Craig Galloway, 6 points on 3 of 5 shooting. He added 5 assists versus 2 turnovers and 2 steals in 31 minutes. Um, Goody and Galloway spent a lot of time complaining to one another, and that is something that has become a growing thing. When things go wrong on the court, guys are turning and really arguing with one another. It's a bad look. It's a bad look and doesn't exactly say that this is a tight team that's on the same page. Uh, but that makes sense. They play like they're not a tight team that's on the same page. They play like 5 players instead of a team. That's what they do game in, game out. Again, Indiana 32 points or 32 rebounds, out rebounded by 3 rebounds by Maryland, which has some good bigs. Derek Queen came in here, somebody that Indiana was really hoping for. I thought it was interesting that Woodson just called him Derek in the second in the post game. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but that was part of what he did. Um, the Hoosiers had just 7 turnovers, uh, had 17 second chance points, 40 points in the paint. Maryland, however, those 12 threes really pushed them over the top, and you score the victory like that if you're Maryland. Dick Trickle bringing back the on the chat, bringing back the I'm disgusted portion of the program. Ty says he can't even think about hoops without being sick to his stomach now. That's fair. That's fair. That is uh, it is a lot of possessions. It's hard to watch because there's nothing going on. And I just want to mention this too. You saw the same thing from Maryland along the way. And again, it's just kind of how college basketball is right now. But that is something that is an ongoing situation for these teams. Kyle says, "Consider me daunted." It's going to be UGLY. So this is interesting because Pecan on the chat brings up you have games coming up at Purdue, at Wisconsin, at Michigan State. Those are 3 of the next 4 games. The schedule actually is Indiana plays at Purdue next Friday. So they got a little bit of time to prepare. And then they have Wisconsin next Tuesday, rather a week from Tuesday. Back home February 8th to take on Michigan, and then they got to go to East Lansing on February 11th. So the next 4 games are going to be really, really difficult for the Hoosiers. And as this one builds, you end up with the Hoosiers moving to 14-7 on the year. You could really start building up and having an issue with this as we go along. 812-393-2600 is the number. Dick asks on the chat, is Trevor coming on today? I'd like his analysis. We'll see if he comes out here. This is, I know he just got done doing the like looking video feedback that he does with Jared and Peegs, not Jared and Rabby for Peegs. We'll see if he comes up here on this. We just lost a call from our caller. Please give us a call back. That 260 number. I was about to go to you, and for some reason it cut out. get to you right away if you call back. 812-393-2600 is the number. Ty says we have 3 L's minimum the next 4 games. That would not be surprising at all, to say the least. Pecan also says with Woodson, all you get is excuses and throwing players under the bus. That tells me he knows he's on the hot seat. I mean, how could you not hear the fans not recognize everything that is going on? Because these losses are mounting, and after that Ohio State game, he said it was ridiculous that they had uh, uh, the outside noise was ridiculous for him. I don't think anybody here thought it was ridiculous, to say the least. 812-393-2600 is your number. Chris says bounce back against Purdue. Ha! I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because, again, you have a team that's crabbing at itself, that's struggling to find consistency. It's starting to get a bit snippy along the way. Ooh, we have Snippy and Snippet. I got all kinds of things going on today. And just is defensively is just too easy to score on. That's supposed to be a hallmark of Indiana basketball is quality defense, and that is not in any way, shape, or form where we're at all. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. One thing I will say is this. So as the losses have mounted and as things have come apart for the Hoosiers, I went back to the Peegs podcast I did March 29th, 2021. It was the podcast immediately after the hiring of Mike Woodson and the um, press conferences, introductory press conferences that we had with Scott Dolson and Mike Woodson. And I wanted to make sure that I remembered it the way that I thought that I did. And at the very least, I do remember it the right way. That I said at the time, this is again 4 years ago, underwhelmed was my first thought on the hiring of Mike Woodson at IU. But I was intrigued by what he might be able to bring to the sideline because of his NBA background. And I said that if the Hoosiers could find consistency on the floor, which was terribly lacking under Archie Miller, that it was a low risk situation. It had the potential to work, and no matter what, that was what the Hoosiers were. It wasn't going to be worse than what we saw in Archie Miller's final year, and it hasn't been. I didn't feel Indiana was going to take a step back. 12 and 15 was Archie Miller's. I believe it was like 12 and 15 or something like that. Was Archie Miller's last season. That's not enough games, I don't think. But anyway, it wasn't good. I know that. And Indiana certainly hasn't. Um, fallen to those levels just yet. However, Mike Woodson also in that press conference talked about restoring Indiana's glory. There was a feeling that maybe former players would come and help reestablish the culture of Hoosier basketball. That hasn't happened. In fact, quite the opposite has happened, where if there's been any kind of criticism of Mike Woodson, they're kind of been shunned. Um, My thing was it had the potential to work if what Mike Woodson laid out in that introductory press conference came true, and it hasn't. It hasn't. So here we are, almost 4 years later. Tony on the chat says there will be change in the offseason, guaranteed. Um, Look, guys, if you go to Purdue and you turn in the kind of performances that you did at Iowa, you go to Wisconsin and get ripped at Wisconsin, and you come back here at 14-9, coming off of a couple of more losses, the atmosphere here in Assembly Hall is going to be pretty rough. These fans want to win bad. Again, the support from the fans today was fantastic. I was really interested to see what we were going to get after that Illinois game, the last time the Hoosiers were at home. I was really interested. There are people that want so badly for this program to be successful, and they are so frustrated because they want it to work and it's not working. And I sit up here in the press box here at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, kind of in the corner, game after game after game. I see the families come in with their kids. Everybody wants to get their picture taken with the Assembly Hall court in the background. It's a huge family thing. Um, we've talked on this show about apathy before, and the apathy that is kind of grown with this program. Anger turns to apathy, and that is the death knell for a program. Well, uh, I'll tell you right now, these fans supported the Hoosiers. They were behind them the whole way. They were incredibly engaged all game, and they want so desperately for this to work. Now, that said, Indiana basketball fans are a smart group. When we get late game and Mike Woodson is shuffling guys in and out of the lineup, and you're getting audible responses to the moves from the fans, and it isn't they want their favorite guy in there. They're, why are you taking your 7-footer out of the ball game? That was an odd situation. It's an odd thing for Mike Woodson to do, and he did it. And everybody knows it. It's just a head scratcher, and it just was not in the post game. We got no real explanation for it. You heard him, and there's just no real explanation for what it was that was going on. Outside of, you know what, the players didn't execute things the way that I wanted them to. It's not good enough. 812-393-2600 is the number. Last call for phone calls, unless we start getting them in. I understand, you know, the playoff games are going to be starting in the NFL, and I don't want to keep you here for that. I got my work that I have to do here, but you know, I'm going to go watch football too. Uh, this is um, an IU team that just continues to not do the little things, and that's what's costing them games. They're not playing with enough intensity for a full 40 minutes. They're not locked in defensively as much as they need to be. They're crabbing at each other. They're crabbing at officials. They are not, again, working as 5 fingers and not a fist. And that to me is really the takeaway. Maryland, by the way, let's talk about Mike Woodson talking about Malik Renew's conditioning coming off that injury. Again, he plays 24 minutes, and that's a lot. I'm not arguing that. He's coming off the injury. The conditioning isn't where it needs to be. Maryland's starters all played at least 35 minutes today. So late game, a tough game. Whether your conditioning is not where it needs to be or not, or it is or it isn't, those starters played a ton of minutes, and they managed to get things done the way they needed to. It's good, by the way, to see Jordan Geronimo. He played just 5 minutes, former Hoosier. Always liked him. It's just his athleticism is just incredible. But he didn't get booed or anything. Their Queen did. But Jordan Geronimo, it's a lot like people almost forgot that he was an Indiana player. He's been gone for a couple of years, but just something to mention. Dave out, I guess. Has the tipping point been reached? Is Woodson out in your opinion, or can he still save his job? Nobody's out until they're out. Can he still save his job? Yeah, he can. Now, what will that take? Well, that'll take uh, just if I were running the show. This is pure speculation. This is me in Scott Dolson's situation, and all things being equal with that. You need to start winning games. Coaching a basketball team is not about what you did today. It's not always about what you did today. It is about both the short term and the long term. Did you win the ball game today? Are you putting your team in the best possible position to win today? But it's also about the direction your program is going. Do we have support? Are we going to continue to thrive as a team? You could lose a game and lose it tough, and have some bad decisions along the way. All of that's okay. That'll happen. But you damn sure better fix the problems the next time out, and you better be headed in the right direction because that is the future. I've said before, as insane as it may sound, that given the direction the IU basketball program was going under Tom Crean, that after Crean won his second Big Ten championship, with the way the cupboard was looking, with the way everything was going with that program, I would have encouraged Tom to go to look elsewhere. It would have been a tough sell. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been. It would have been. But whether you're going to bring a coach back is always about not what has happened, but what is projected for the future, the direction of your program. So if you go on the road, you pick up wins over Purdue, Wisconsin. You show that you are competitive and that you are winning ball games, and you're knocking off Michigan at home, and you're protecting your home court, and beat Purdue and get another one against Penn State along the way. It's about starting to win some damn ball games and not letting them slip away and then say, well, I got to get him over the hump, which he didn't say those exact words, that verbal tick that he has, but it is all part of the equation. So it's about direction of a program, and that is what is key. Gregory says last year Woodson hid behind injuries. This year he's hiding behind the Renew being injured. Um, Basketball coach who knows his X's and O's late in the game is needed. Um, he hid behind some injuries last year and also hid behind the fact that there were so many new faces and that they were figuring things out. And that was all stuff that he would continue to lean on as a verbal tick uh, last year. And it's the same situation this year that you're going to continue to have guys come in and change things up. But it is, if you change the guys from last year and it doesn't work, then there's only one direction to look at, and that is in the mirror. You have to look in the mirror. As what I'm doing, really, what is the issue here, and that isn't really what we've heard so far. So that's where we are with this. You lose the ball game, you fall now to 14-7 in the Big Ten, 5-5, rather 14-7 overall, 5-5 in the Big Ten. Second loss here at home, second straight loss here at home uh, in conference, with a hell of a lot of resources behind you. There are people from the outside who might go ahead and look and say, "Well, Indiana's 14-7. They're winning 2/3 of their games this year. Yeah, they're 500 in the conference, but they aren't awful." Here in Indiana, you expect a higher standard, especially with the talent that you have on the roster, the potential that you have on the roster, and you know it really it can snowball very quickly with what's ahead of them. Coming into this game, Indiana had lost 3 of its last 4 games, uh, and was negative 58 in those 4 games. Well, today it goes to negative 59, and you've lost 4 of 5. Trip to Purdue, trip to Wisconsin. Those are tough. Winning on the road in the Big Ten is difficult. Winning on the road is tough for Indiana, which we've seen when even they beat Ohio State, they let a 10-point lead slip away and had to win in overtime. So if you're looking at that, you've already lost 4 or 5. You could end up losing 6 or 7, and then have to play Michigan here at home on February 8th. It's tough, but I'll be here to be the uh, all the uh, all the therapy that you guys need. We've talked this to death. I definitely wanted to hear from you guys, you know, but I understand. There's just so much frustration. But we'll get back after it when the Hoosiers take on Purdue. 8 p.m. tip-off in Mackey Arena next Friday. And I'll be on the air afterwards to talk about that. Looking forward to it because I love talking basketball with you guys. And even over the chat, I really appreciate it a ton. It's been a tough season. And I don't know how much better it's going to get. But we'll see. Well, that's all the time we have on the Peegs Postgame Live. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you to visit Peegs.com for the very best on IU football and basketball coverage you're going to find anywhere. Nobody covers Hoosier recruiting better than Jeff Rabjohns, Matt Weaver, Trevor Andershock, and Jared Kelly. So be a part of a thriving and excited community at Peegs.com. Folks, you are not going to be disappointed. Folks, we're out of time. But for now, and for Jeff, Matt, Trevor, and Jared, I'm Ken Bykoff saying thanks for listening, everybody.